This is Jarrod for the RunawayHorse.com, and in this Kentucky Derby 2020 video report, we're going to look back at both divisions of the Arkansas Derby, and then we're going to look ahead at some of the races coming up on the road to the Kentucky Derby, and then some other Derby-related news as well. But let's start with both divisions of the Arkansas Derby, and in the first division of the Arkansas Derby, Charlatan for trainer Bob Baffert was able to get the job done. He was the heavy favorite. He went wire to wire. It was his third easy win from his many lifetime starts. He started his career at Santa Anita. He won a sprint. They stretched him out. He won his second career start easily. And then in his third career start, his longest race and his toughest race, he really was never challenged, but that's what it looked like on paper. It just looked like he was going to control the pace. There wasn't any other horses with his speed, and he was just able to get out there, control proceedings throughout, and win easily. Now the final time for a mile and an eighth, 1:48.49, solid final time, not quite as fast as the second division of the Arkansas Derby, but Charlatan still has some things to prove. He's going to have to prove that he can face pace pressure, because he really hasn't had any pressure. Really, he hasn't even been challenged yet. In all three of his career starts, he just got out there and he was able to just lope along and win easily all three times. Now, at some point, most likely, he's going to be challenged, and we'll see how good he really is when that happens. But he's 3 for 3. He's picked up more than enough Derby points now, 100 Derby points qualifying for the Kentucky Derby. So now they can wait and then pick his next spot, be patient. The Derby isn't until the first Saturday in September, so they have plenty of time. Basin for trainer Steve Asmussen was second. He picked up 40 Derby points here. He's won. I still think he's better at shorter distances. He hasn't won around 2 turns yet. He seemed to have good form in sprint races as a 2-year-old. So Basin's one that they're going to continue on the road to the Derby. But I think at some point, if he doesn't win some of these 2-turn races, and maybe after the Kentucky Derby even, maybe they'll turn him back. But we'll see how he does as he continues on the road to the Derby. And then Gouverneur Morris was a solid third. He just always seems to be thereabouts. He just can't break through in the stakes races. He won his career debut, maiden special weight, in the Breeders' Futurity. In his second career start, he finished a well-beaten second. And then they brought him back in an optional claiming route to Tampa Bay. He won that. And then in the Florida Derby, he was gaining on the second and third place finishers, but he couldn't get to those. Tis the Law was the easy winner there. And then Charlatan, the easy winner here. And Gouverneur Morris was gaining on Basin for second, but he couldn't quite get second. He ended up third. So he's been amassing some Kentucky Derby points, but he's just going to have to get better. They're either going to have to drop him out of grade 1 races at some point for him to pick up a graded victory, or he's just going to have to get a bit faster. He never quits. He just keeps coming at the other horses for minor awards, but he hasn't been able to match strides with horses like Tis the Law and Charlatan. Now in the second division of the Arkansas Derby, Nadal for trainer Bob Baffert. Bob Baffert made it a sweep, and Nadal was impressive, going a bit quicker. Now, as I mentioned, the first division, 1:48.49 seconds for the mile and an eighth. This one, 1:48.34. So this was the faster division of the Arkansas Derby, and Nadal looked good. Now, Nadal's one that he's already battle tested. In his first 3 starts, he was battle tested in all of those, and he came out victorious. And now he's 4 for 4. So Charlatan's 3 for 3. Nadal is now 4 for 4. Nadal won his maiden race battling on the pace. In his second career start, they jumped him into the San Vicente Stakes. He battled with Ginobili. He put that one away. And then in the Rebel Stakes, he was part of a wicked pace. He put away all the pace rivals, and he held off a late runner to win there gamely. And then in this race, he came from a bit off the pace. Wells Bayou from the outside post was sent to the lead. Nadal was right outside of that one, tracking that one, and he put away that horse, and he won nicely here. King Guillermo was second, a son of Uncle Mo, and King Guillermo had won the Tampa Bay Derby. So King Guillermo had some ability, but he wasn't close to Nadal. Nadal was best here. King Guillermo was second. And then Finnick the Fierce rallied to finish third, and my top choice, value top choice, Farmington Road, was fourth. But make no doubt about it, Nadal won the faster division. He looked good. He's more tested than Charlatan is at this point, but the Kentucky Derby isn't until the first Saturday in September, so there's plenty of time for a horse like Charlatan to continue to get better. But Nadal is very good, and he's got good speed, and he just never quits. King Guillermo, solid effort for him. Finnick the Fierce, he's been able to pick up some minor awards, and he did that here. And Farmington Road, I thought he ran an okay race. He made a wide middle move. It looked like he was really going to do something in this race, and then he just wasn't able to get to the front runners. Now, for Arkansas Derby Day, this speed was doing well throughout the day, and Farmington Road didn't run poorly. So he's one I'm going to continue to keep on my Derby list towards the bottom of my exceptional 11 list. But he's one I think that he has a lot of stamina, he has some ability, and for Todd Pletcher, I think he can continue to get better. Now that'll wrap up my look at the Arkansas Derby, both divisions. Now let's look at some upcoming races for the 2020 Kentucky Derby Trail. Now, due to the coronavirus pandemic, the Derby Trail's been thrown out of whack for sure. The Kentucky Derby was supposed to be run on the first Saturday in May, but we had the Arkansas Derby run there. The Kentucky Derby's been moved to the first Saturday in September, September 5th. So now the next points race is going to be the Grade 3 Matt Winn Stakes at Churchill Downs on May 23rd. And some of the horses pointing to that race, Maxfield and Major Fed. Now Maxfield's one, he's been on my list, and if you watched my video about horses that were helped by the later Derby date, Maxfield was one of those horses, and he's one that has a lot of talent. At least he showed a lot of talent as a 2-year-old, winning both starts very easily from off the pace, including the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, defeating Gouverneur Morris very easily there. And then he had an ankle chip. He was sidelined. He was not going to make the Kentucky Derby if it was the first Saturday in May. But now that it's been pushed back to September, he has a good chance of making it, and he'll make his 3-year-old debut in that Matt Winn Stakes at 1 1/16 at Churchill Downs on May 23rd. And for the Kentucky Derby points, it's 10 points for the winner, 4 for second, 2 for third, and 1 for fourth. Now for the connections of Maxfield, I think they just have to start somewhere, and they would be happy if he sat back, made a nice run, and at least hit the board. It'd be nice to see him win, but I don't think a win is necessary. They just want to see him running on at the end and get a race into him. Now Major Fed is one that is probably going to run there as well. He's going to be coming in from Fairgrounds. He was second in one of the divisions of the Risen Star, and then he was fourth in the Louisiana Derby. So he has some ability. Maxfield needs some pace help. We'll have to see which other horses end up there. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby was originally scheduled for April 6th. Now it's going to be run in April, or in early April. Now it's going to be run on June 6th. At least that's the plan. If Santa Anita is able to reopen, that's the new date for the Santa Anita Derby, and it'll be worth 100 points for the winner, 40 for second, 20 for third, and 10 for fourth. Some of the horses pointing to the Santa Anita Derby, Authentic for trainer Bob Baffert. He won the San Felipe Stakes. He defeated Honor AP, and Honor AP is also pointing to the Santa Anita Derby for trainer John Sheriffs. And Tis a Magician is another, and a few others are. We're going to learn more. Hopefully Santa Anita will be able to run that race, and then also we'll learn more about some of the other horses that are pointing to that race. But Honor AP is one that I think has a good chance to turn the tables on Authentic, because in the last time in that San Felipe, Honor AP had missed a start. He was coming off of a 4-month layoff, and he made a nice sustained run to finish a decent second behind front-running winner Authentic. I think the longer distance, and now as Honor AP is getting more experience, he's one that could turn the tables. And actually, Honor AP is my top Kentucky Derby contender right now. He has a lot of ability, and he was one that was on my horses that were most helped by the later Derby date, because John Sheriff's a very patient trainer. He had missed some training earlier this year, but seems to be back on track. Good pedigree, has a lot of ability, running style versatility, and we'll see how Honor AP does in the Santa Anita Derby. Now the Grade 3 Los Alamitos Derby for July 4th. Well, the purse has been raised to $150,000 for that Los Alamitos race. It was $100,000 last year. Game Winner was the winner. So now it's going to be positioned to be a Kentucky Derby points race. Don't know how many points they're going to offer, but it's supposed to be a Derby points race. The purse has been raised, and it will be run at Los Alamitos Racecourse on the 4th of July. The Grade 1 Haskell is another race that will be run later this year, July 18th at Monmouth Park, and that's going to be a Kentucky Derby points race as well. Now, some other races this summer to look for: the Shared Belief Stakes at Del Mar. They're going to position that on the calendar to make that a Kentucky Derby points race. The Travers at Saratoga, most likely they're going to move that earlier into the month of August and make that a Derby points race as well. And then possibly Keeneland could be running a summer meet. They canceled their spring meet. They could reschedule, and they're looking for dates for the summer. And the Bluegrass could be part of that summer meet at Keeneland. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, as I mentioned, the Kentucky Derby is now going to be run on the first Saturday in September. That's Saturday, September 5th. And the Kentucky Oaks has been rescheduled for Friday, September 4th, the first Friday in September. Now, the Preakness at Pimlico, we don't know when the Preakness is going to be run yet, but there's been some news lately, possibly October 3rd, which would put it after the Kentucky Derby. This has been a crazy year where the races are going to be, we don't know when they're going to run, we don't know all the points races, but possibly the Preakness could be run after the Kentucky Derby on October 3rd. They're also looking at a possibility of a July or August date. That's being discussed as well, but the latest news has been that October 3rd is a tentative date that they may choose to run the Preakness that day. Now, for the Belmont Stakes, don't know when that's going to be run. It was originally scheduled to be run on June 6th. That's the date of the Santa Anita Derby now. Don't know when racing is going to return to New York. Belmont, if they're able to get live racing up and running soon, the Belmont could run later in the month of June. It could run at a shorter distance than 1.5 miles. There's a lot of question marks for the Belmont Stakes right now. It could end up being the first leg of a jumbled Triple Crown this year. We'll see how that plays out. Now, some of the horses that are highly regarded on the Derby Trail and some of the races that they're pointing to, 'Tis the Law for trainer Barclay Tagg. Now, he was one. I think he was hurt by that Kentucky Derby date. He was ready to go on the first Saturday in May. He looked really good in both of his stakes wins at Gulfstream Park, including the Florida Derby this year. He has that good tactical speed. And now, since the Kentucky Derby was canceled, they were never going to run him in the Arkansas Derby, and they really have no target right now. They're just taking the wait-and-see approach. They're going to be patient and wait to see possibly if the Belmont Stakes does show up later in the month of June or whenever they run the Belmont, maybe 'Tis the Law could end up there. We're just not quite sure yet. Sol Volante for trainer Pat Biancone, he does want to point to the Belmont Stakes. Again, we don't know if it's going to be run at 1.5 miles or even when it's going to be run, but the rumors are going around that possibly later in the month of June and at a shorter distance than 1.5 miles, but Sol Volante is one that would like to run in the Belmont Stakes. And also Pat Biancone has Ete Indian. That one, the Haskell Stakes is going to be his next target. That makes sense. He's a horse with speed. Monmouth is a speed track. Speed horses do well in the Haskell. So Ete Indian is pointing to that race, and that makes perfect sense. Now, some of the tracks that have been cleared to run or they're scheduled to get going again, Golden Gate Fields in Northern California. They've been cleared to resume live racing on May 14th. Now, Santa Anita Park, they're scheduled to resume on May 15th. They've put out a condition book. They've added stakes races, as I mentioned, the Santa Anita Derby, but they're still, all of that is pending and okay from state officials to be able to run again. The health department has not cleared them to run again, and we're waiting to hear word. They would like to run on May 15th, and that would be next week already. So if Santa Anita is ready to run, they're going to return on a Friday through Sunday basis beginning on May 15th. We'll see if that does happen. Now, Churchill Downs, they've been cleared to run, and they're going to resume live racing on May 16th. And the week later is the Matt Winn Stakes. So Churchill Downs is going to be starting. They're going to have opening weekend, Saturday, May 16th, Sunday, May 17th. Hopefully, everything will go well with that Churchill meet, and then maybe they'll have a Keeneland summer meet after that. And then New York racing, as I mentioned, no return date yet. They're talking to officials in New York, waiting to get the clearance to run and get New York racing up and running again. So a lot of question marks on the road to the Derby, but we had two nice-looking winners of the Arkansas Derby in both divisions last week. We have some races rescheduled, as I said, like the Matt Winn, the Santa Anita Derby, the Los Al Derby, the Haskell Stakes. So we know some races will be coming up, and they will be points races. We don't know quite how many points some of those races will be will feature, but we're going to find out more. And I'll keep doing these Kentucky Derby reports each time we learn more news. I'll come back each week and try to keep up with all this news, which horses are going where and which tracks are opening. And Churchill should have an updated Kentucky Derby points race schedule in the near future as more tracks start to open. So that'll wrap up this video report for the Kentucky Derby. And until next week, good luck at the races and stay safe.